Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're playing Destiny 2. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and salutations! Today, it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Let's get to it. Luke Smith, director of Destiny 2, had a lot of things to say about Destiny moving forward into year 4. Currently we're in year 3, about halfway through year 3, so we still have 2 more seasons before even thinking about year 4. With that said, Luke Smith is talking about changes coming to next year's Destiny, and there's a lot to talk about. Right off the bat, first off, he said there's a lot of fear of missing out on content. When you had the Corridors of Time, you had that puzzle to solve, you had exactly 2 weeks to figure it out and follow along with what other people figured out before it went away. So that is a very tight window for people to get involved in something that is happening live. So that, in and of itself, is a good thing. Some other changes that are coming, they're going to be tweaking things here and there, of course, abilities and the way that you play with your Titan, Warlock, or Hunter. Bright engrams are not going to be purchasable from Eververse in the coming years, so those are going to go away, although you'll still be able to earn those old Bright engrams from the Season Pass. Bungie underestimated how many new Guardians would come into the Destiny universe when it went free to play. As such, they took the old intro from D1 and had you come into the Cosmodrome and then get in the ship, go to the new tower, and then that was the intro. And with all the new Guardians, they didn't realize the real significance of going into the Cosmodrome. That was the beginning for all Destiny 1 players at the time, and now you can't even get back to the Cosmodrome, so there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So they're going to flesh it out a little bit more for year 4. There's going to be a change to the quest tab starting season 10, which is next season, Season of the Worthy. And they're going to make it so that you can a little bit better figure out which ones you should be focusing on and which ones you can work towards when you have free time. This will make it a little bit easier for you to look at your quest tab and say, what should I be working on, or what can I be working on? Now overall, the Battle Pass has been a good thing. One of the things that they're going to have to work on is the XP loopholes where people can grind out levels very quickly by picking up bounties, going into lost sectors, or just, flash farming XP, making it very, very quick to get that XP and to level up your season rank, get extra power from your artifact. It's kind of like the treasure cave or loot cave from D1. That's not how the developers, and hopefully not the players, want to play the game. It is a loophole to get you what you want. So in D1, people wanted to get legendaries very quickly and have a chance at getting exotics. So they went to that loot cave and they just killed guys over and over and over again until they got as much stuff as they could carry, and then they would go and leave, break stuff down, whatever, and it passed the time. It got you what you wanted, but it wasn't really the replayability, the mode of play that anyone had in mind. So I think that is the same thing here with XP, bounties, and just farming XP and doing it in such a way that you're not really experiencing the whole game or the game as a whole, but rather figuring out a loophole or a way to get that power level up more quickly. So they're going to be addressing that. And honestly, there's 2 ways they could go about doing this. Number 1 is take the XP off of bounties altogether. Now, if they do that, they will obviously need to adjust the amount of XP you get from doing activities like playlist activities, whether it's Crucible or Strikes or Gambit, doing things like public events or patrols, and of course that will make up the difference, and that I think will do the job. So killing enemies, doing patrols, doing public events, doing the nightfalls, the strikes, the heroic story missions, Crucible, Gambit, all those activities should give you XP instead of bounties. Bounties should be there to kind of augment your activities, not to be the main way of getting XP. So instead of offering XP, you could get a glimmer off of bounties or resources or maybe even a legendary, just an additional way to get a RNG drop. The other way that they can take care of this loophole is to eliminate the extra bounties and only have daily bounties. So there's only so much XP that you can get in one day, even if you go through all the planets and everything, which would be lengthy, but each bounty and each planet and each vendor, it will take time, and you can't just run into a lost sector and complete all those bounties, because some of the bounties say do public events or do melee kills or do grenade ability kills or super kills. So all those things will take a little bit of time versus the method that they're using now. So one of those two ways they're really going to have to do. There might be a third option that I'm not thinking of, but those are relatively easy ways for them to take care of it. Now, if they do get rid of the extra bounties, they may want to go ahead and put in an extra bounty in there. So instead of having, say, 4 or 5 bounties from Shaxx or Zavala or the Drifter, maybe they'll have 7 or 8. So people that are working on their weekly bounty for that vendor, then they would be able to go ahead and finish that if they really wanted to grind out for that day. The other things that seem to be working relatively well are the seasonal narratives. So going into the mission, saving Saint 14, that was cool. Having the cutscenes and having the things to do where you can see kind of what's going on and what people are thinking. I think that is a great way to bring change to the Destiny world, and it is relatively minor. So you're not changing the way that a map looks, you're just changing how you view different people within the universe. Now, with that being said, they are not really delivering on the evolving world of Destiny. They've admitted as such, and I have to agree. One of the big benefits of having a set location and set maps is that players come in, whether it's into Nessus, into Mars, EDZ, Moon, wherever, and they know what to expect. They know where things are at and where to go and everything. And having an evolving world means that some of those maps could potentially change. If you have an invasion of the Vex on the moon, maybe instead of having all these big cracks, all of a sudden they're repairing it for some reason. So the map would change. Maybe Nessus, the Cabal, because they're there as well, maybe they're destroying a part of the map and that part of the map will change, or maybe it's no longer accessible, but then you have another area that changes. So having the maps change is one way to have the evolving world. And of course, they will have to be careful that having quest steps or whatever where you have to go to certain areas, that needs to either remain the same or you need to change the quest step in order for players to continue that quest. So quests that require certain areas, either those areas need to be sanctuary where they can't be changed, or change the quest so that then it can be completed in a different area. Now, in terms of overall content, when Destiny 2 first came out, of course, there was a large amount of content because they had been working on it for several years, putting it all together. And some of the areas are familiar but different from Destiny 1, so some of those resources didn't have to be made from scratch. Going into the Forsaken, there was a large amount of new stuff. There was the Tangled Shore and the Dreaming City. There was the raid. There was the dungeon, the Shattered Throne. There was huge changes, plus a whole new faction called the Scorn. So there was a huge amount of content that dropped with year 2. Year 3 had a new location too. It had the moon and it had Eris Morn come back. But overall, I think it was lacking in content comparatively, both to year 1 and to year 2. And I do understand that there is a difference in self-publishing versus having a larger company publish. The resources are just at a different level. The amount of time, effort, etc. are going to be different, but there are going to be parallels made between the different years. And honestly, I was okay with Shadowkeep when it originally came out, having less content initially, so long as they could continue to deliver content on a continual basis. So each season bringing in a larger content historically than year one or year two, I think would have been a good thing. Currently, we have the seasons bringing in an escalation protocol-esque or Archon Forge or Blindwell or whatever you want to call it into the season, and then of course it leaves the season, and we already know what to expect from these activities, so it's not really a surprise when they show up, and it's not really a surprise how to get them done. Some of the mechanics do change, they are slightly different, but overall it really feels like the same activity. Alright, moving on, and to the biggest chunk of news, the changes or proposed changes coming to weapons. Currently, if you have a weapon, whether you got it in year 1, year 2, or year 3, you can infuse that weapon. You can bring up its power by sacrificing a more powerful item, and you bring it up to that level. So if you have a year 1 750 power weapon, and you get a 970 weapon, you can infuse the higher weapon, that 970, into the 750, say an adjudicator, and bring that up to 970. Bungie is now proposing for year 4 to change that model. When you get a weapon, it will have an expiration date, or it has a maximum power that you can put onto it. So you get a weapon at 900 and it will only be able to go up to 950. And once that happens, then you're done. That's the highest it can go. You can continue to use it in free roam. You can continue to use it in those activities that you enjoy, but for pinnacle type activities, you will have to use more powerful versions in order to maintain your personal power and your ability to do those activities. So these weapons that you grinded out hours or days or whatever to get the Luna's Howl, Not Forgotten, Mountaintop, Komodo, the Breakneck, the Loaded Question, the Edgewise, 21% Delirium, all of those weapons, Love and Death, those all have an expiration date. They have a target on their backs. They're only going to get so powerful, and then that's it. Now, in one sense, and what they're thinking of is that this is a good thing because this will encourage players to use new weapons. How many times have you gotten a new weapon and said, no, it looks good, it's got good perks on it, but I'm not going to use it. You end up putting it in the vault and never using it because you already have a weapon that you really enjoy and that works better. So for example, maybe you get a Fatebringer hand cannon, you love it, it's great, but then you have to discard that because it is no longer powerful enough for you to use. So then down the road you get another hand cannon, a Kindled Orchid, let's say, and that one is kind of like the Fatebringer, but not really, and it feels similar enough that you can use it, but I mean, I think you get where I'm going with this. You have weapons that you enjoy using, and then you can no longer use them. If you can't use them in all activities, more than likely, you're not going to keep it at all. So on one hand, this is the answer to that vault that is filling up with weapons and armor that you just don't have room for anything more because you have 1 or 2, let's say, of every weapon, and there's so many different weapons that it is taking up a lot of space. On the other hand, this harkens back to D1. When you got a weapon, whatever power it dropped at, that was what you were stuck with. So if you got a better weapon or a higher power weapon, even if the rolls weren't as good, you ended up using that because that was more powerful, and that is kind of the direction they're going with this. Now, yes, you will be able to infuse weapons, but only up to a certain point. That point is yet to be determined. So if our new power year 4 starts off at 990 and it goes up to 1050, those weapons, will they only go up to 1050? Will they go up to 1060, 1070? We don't know. We don't know what the power range is going to be. So there's going to be a bottom where new weapons will only drop at a certain level. So whatever your power level is, you get up to 960, let's say, and then you start getting these newer legendary weapons, year 4 legendary weapons. And those weapons won't drop any lower than 960. And then from there on, You can infuse those weapons if you get a good roll, or you can get rid of the weapon if you don't really like it, but you got one that's more powerful, start using that, and once you get a good roll, then you can infuse it up to a certain point, and then you'll have to start looking for a new weapon that has a higher range. Now, the problem with this, and I think they're setting themselves to walk a tightrope here, is that players can either really enjoy the loot or the search for loot, or they can feel like they're being placed on a treadmill where they're not really going anywhere. You're just kind of tossing weapons at them as they're running in place, and then every so often you have to drop the weapons and wait for new weapons to pop up. So it can easily feel like you're not going anywhere, that what you do really doesn't matter because the weapons that you get now are going to have to be replaced in the future. It's not a better version of the weapon, it just isn't as good because it doesn't do as much damage, because the power level can't go up any higher. One of the biggest problems I see with this model is RNG. RNG can be a great thing, or it can be a really crummy thing. People that have tried to grind out a Love and Death grenade launcher with both full port, field prep, and spike grenades probably know this better than most. Some people might have gotten lucky. Some people might have had to go through 10, 12, 20 different essences in order to get one that had 2 of the 3 perks, or maybe you got all 3. The fact of the matter is that RNG can be very cruel. For instance, in Year 2, Forsaken, I had gotten a Crooked Fang linear fusion rifle that has accelerated coils, charge time on the Masterwork, and then rangefinder and high impact reserves. I love using that, but since then, I have yet, within the last year or so, to get another Crooked Fang with the same rolls. So what's going to happen is that my Crooked Fang will no longer be viable because it can only go up to a certain point, and I have to look for another Crooked Fang that has a higher reach or higher power potential. And how long will it take for me to find another one with similar enough rolls that I would enjoy using it again? It may take a really long time. In fact, it may take longer than 1 season's or 1 content's worth of power adjustment. So for example, we'll just say 100 is the new power and your weapon can go up to 150. I may not find another Crooked Fang at that level that I enjoy. I may have to wait for the 150 to 200 in order to find one that works. And it could be a Crooked Fang, or it could be another linear fusion with a different name. But I'm still going to look for certain perks on the weapon. And that is the core argument. What makes the weapon worth using? Is it the way it fires? No, it is the perks on the gun and how fun it is to use, how much enjoyment you get out of using weapons. If you have a favorite weapon, you have an affinity towards using that weapon. And sometimes it doesn't even matter if it is a meta weapon or just one that you enjoy because it has good perks on it. How long will it be for me to get a high impact kinetic scout rifle with both Outlaw and Dragonfly on it? And that is the crux of the matter. I'm not looking for a specific weapon per se as specific perks. So even though they have a Fatebringer and that goes up to 150 and then 150 to 250, you have the Bringer Fate, which is just a reskin of the Fatebringer. So it does look different, but you're still looking for the rolls that you got on your original Fatebringer. So all in all, I will refrain from saying it's a bad idea of them thinking of doing what they're going to do with the weapon, but it is a very precipitous drop if they do it wrong. Now additionally, if you think that's the only thing you have to worry about, you also have to worry about armor, because they've already talked about changes to armor that should be beneficial, which of course means that the hammer is going to drop here very shortly with armor, and that armor will also only be able to go up to certain levels, and then they will drop off as well. And with stat rolls being the way they are, it is very difficult to get a natural drop of 60 plus on a piece of armor, and the armor that I had gotten from the season pass, where it dropped between 64 and 67, has never happened anywhere else in the game. Not in the pinnacle activity, not in a random drop, and I have gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of pieces of legendary armor that I've broken down, simply because I already have something with a higher stat total. So if they are going to go with this model, they need to take a really hard look at RNG and see what is going on there, because it will get from fun to frustrating in a heartbeat with these changes if RNG is not looked at seriously. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check us out on social media, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And we'll see you next time.
As I do, Guardian. A hatred as pure and potent as sunshine, soaking through your skin. Ashladoon is neither the strongest nor the most clever of Crota's progeny. It was her ceaseless devotion to her sires that earned her station, her viciousness. Even in the chaos following Oryx's death, her faith was unquenchable. She led a ruthless inquisition of her scattered sisterhood. The faithless were quartered and consumed. Fear renewed the conviction of those who survived.
Here she comes. Eris, it's over. Hashladoon is dead.
This is a relief to hear. But Hashladoon's presence is no coincidence. The Hive must have grander ambitions for the Pyramid's influences.